Oh gosh, hello, hello. I'm always delighted to get to learn with you all. And today I am especially delighted because we are going to have a very easy, very chilled out, very laid back class. And we're going to be doing things a little bit out of order. So, hello, everyone. We've got learners from all around the world coming to learn with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you for making time. But also, thank you very much to the folks who are watching this sort of asynchronously in your own time. That's wonderfully kind of you to make time. So, what we're going to do today is have a look at computer basics. And this is going to feel a little weird because we're going out of the order of the Free Code Camp web development curriculum. So, can anybody say me, or yes, 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 if you've been able to log on to Free Code Camp, like sign up for a free account and log on, or be like, oh no, not yet, if you haven't been able to. No pressure if you haven't yet, but you're going to have a much better time of it if you're able to log on. So, just let me know, yes, 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 if you've been able to get onto Free Code Camp, and no, no, oh gosh, there's a yes, yes, yes already. So cool, we've got folks. And if folks are having a hard time with that, we can get you sorted out as well. So the Discord's a really great place to get peer support. And my fantastic colleague Edda is behind the scenes. Edda, could you drop a link to the Discord into the chat if it's not a bother? So I'm going to go very, very fast because today we're doing the boring stuff first. What we're doing today is we're going to be taking a look at the computer basics section of the Free Code Camp web responsive web design curriculum. So if you're not already familiar with it, this is the Bad Website Club website. And the Bad Website Club website is going to be where you want to go ahead and come for being able to see everything we're going to do and everything you need to know. If you clicked on this button, you'd see the video you're watching now, which would probably be a little weird. But what we're going to do is we've said, hey, if you've had time before this session, could you please read? And gosh, there's a heck ton of reading this time. This is going to be probably the most boring session. I'm sorry. We're asking you to check out the review on your own and to please take this quiz by yourself because you're going to test your knowledge. I'm not testing it, the system is. So during this session, and this is what we're going to do right now, super chill, we're going to review those notes and core concepts. So folks who've taken notes, that's so exciting. Um, could I go ahead and ask you to, if you have any questions at all from your notes, please, please, please drop those into the chat and we'll either get them as we're chatting or we'll get them at the end. Cool. So let's dive right into these core concepts. Some of these we'll go through really, really fast unless somebody has a question. And if you have a question, we'll go back and dig into those a bit more if that's okay. Ready? Oh, and this is sort of previewing. So we're going to ask you after this session to start digging into some HTML. So these are the different bits of theory you've asked you to read. And we're just going to go really, really quickly through these and talk about these concepts and answer any questions you might have about them. Yeah? So the first one, which I'm really excited about, is we're going to be talking about understanding computers. Like, what is a computer? What's a computer doing? And what is a computer can be a really challenging question because a computer, as a concept, is any kind of machine that's able to process information to complete a series of tasks. And in this curriculum, when Free Code Camp is talking about a computer, it usually means like a laptop computer or a desktop computer. If you go to your phone and look for the computer emoji, oh, let me see if I can find the computer emoji. Ha ha ha. What Free Code Camp is probably talking about is this computer. Yeah. And for the purposes of this section, that's a useful way to think about a computer. But just to preview this, your phone is, if you have a smartphone, your smartphone is a computer too. If you have a tablet, your tablet's a computer. We're not going to talk about servers very much yet, but a server is another computer. So right here, when we're talking about the basics we need to know about for our tooling, our computers are probably laptops, desktops, Yeah. And these computers have some physical concepts and non-physical concepts. Computers generally have to have memory. And that's because if a computer is a machine that processes information to be able to do a set task, it needs to be able to remember that information. Even super simple things like 2 plus 5 equals 7. Okay. If your computer didn't have memory, you'd say 2 plus, and as soon as you said plus, the computer would be like, what? Plus what? I haven't retained that 2. So memory is the sort of state of your computer being able to hold on to information to process it. Does that feel okay? We've kind of hinted at processing. Computer processes are they can get pretty complicated really fast. But just think of a process on your computer as the ability of your computer to run the series of instructions that you give it. So in order for it to add our 2 plus 5, our computer has to have the power to process that addition. Memory is important, but storage is important too. Many computers, like your laptop, like your desktop, like your phone, need to be able to save data longer term. So if you take a photo on your smartphone, that's going to be saved to storage. Yeah. Just really quickly, the physical parts of the computer it wanted us to know about are motherboard, internal parts that holds your memory and connects it, CPU computer chip that lives on the motherboard, RAM. So this is the physical part of memory that holds short-term memory. Is a good way to remember it. Always be careful, but think because things held in your RAM disappear when you turn your computer off. The hard drive on your computer is the part where it stores your files and data longer term, where it shouldn't go away. And expansion cards in computers do a bunch of different things, but we're not really going to worry about them yet. Yeah, they can't hurt us. What we are going to do is if you have any questions about the core concepts of what a computer is, please, please, please let us know in the chat. But I'm also going to bop down. Ooh, it always makes me a little queasy to do this. And I really recommend the book by Matthew Justice called How Computers Really Work. And this is one of my, this is a recommendation if you want to learn more about computation as concepts and the parts of a computer. It is not necessary for the course. We're going to take a deep breath and come all the way up. I'm not, I hate to second guess some of the free code camp curriculum, but some of the parts here that we've gotten taught in this section, we're going to skip over pretty fast because I think they're a little bit less important for this course. Oh gosh, there is the link to, you know what, that's exactly what I would think the web page for this book would be is howcomputersreallywork.com. Thank you. We also had a section of theory about keyboards, mice, and other pointing devices. So your keyboard that they're talking about here is, oh gosh, very fancy, is the generally physical object that's either built into a laptop, connected to a desktop computer, connected to a phone, that lets you input text via keys. A mouse is one of many pointing devices, even though some folks on laptops or folks on tablets may use a touch surface. And this section kind of gave us some health tips to say, oh, well, don't slouch. I slouch pretty constantly when I'm not on stream, though. And they say, oh, if you can, try and find a desk to work from. And the thing I'm worst at is getting up and try and take breaks when you can. Gosh. All right. So we're just going to continue. I'm very aware that this is the most boring uh, section of the boot camp, and that's why we decided to put it first. Really, really fast, we're going to talk about how you connect to the internet. So an ISP, an internet service provider, is the company or service that you usually have to pay money to that gets you connected to the internet. And one thing I really like about taking good notes is your notes don't just have to be about what's in the material. So this piece of theory didn't really tell us about the difference between the internet and the web, But I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So I looked it up and I made some notes. And it says, okay, well, the internet and web, we see these concepts used pretty interchangeably. But if you think of the internet as the architecture, it is a network of computers that are connected to each other, well, with the internet. And this connection is what makes the web possible. So, internet is the network of interconnected computers, whereas the web, the World Wide Web, is the collection of information that you can access on the internet. Does that seem okay? I know these are used interchangeably a lot, which is super weird. So I really liked this explainer that Geeks for Geeks had. Oh, oh gosh. Around what's the internet and what's the web. So I've included it here in your notes if you like. Oh gosh, let's hop back and forth. We're going to keep coming back down. Ooh. Before I cover this in the notes, y'all yell at me, please. Do you think that you should have a password on your computer or phone, please? And the face I'm making, if y'all can see me, might be a really good sign that I have some strong opinions here. So generally, if you have a computer or if you have any kind of device, you think you want to have a password on it? We've got folks after my own heart. Huh? Oh, I'm going to come back to the internet versus the web because I thought a lot about how to describe this. And I'm afraid that Paul has said this much better than I have. Thank you so much. That if we think about the internet as the structure and the web is the content of what we can get, that is so, so good. And I see a bunch of folks in the chat who are like, yes, yes, yes. We've got somebody saying, oh, a password or a passphrase. Yes, yes. I agree. So if you're using your computer or if you're using different systems online, you probably want to make sure that only authorized people have access to that. Please, 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 if you're not using one, add a password, but not now, maybe right after the, oh, now. You can just listen along. We talked a little bit about choosing good passwords in our material, which I really liked. Yeah, good passwords are random. So password is a terrible password. It's pretty easy to guess. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. It's a bad password. I'm sorry. It's easy to guess. And I talk to a lot of folks who say, I don't have to have hard passwords. I don't know anybody who wants to get into my devices. Can anybody think about why that might not be the problem? And while I wait and see if you have an opinion, let's talk about good passwords. Good passwords should be hard to guess. And in a perfect world, in a good world even, you should have different passwords for different things. The password to your physical computer to unlock it should be different from the password to your email, which should be different from the password to your power company account. And this is because if one of your passwords gets leaked out on the open web, it means that anybody who has that password can only get into that one account. They can't get into all of your accounts and ruin your life. Dan makes a really solid point here that a good password is not just hard to guess, it's hard to memorize. So I really like to recommend that folks, and that our theory recommended as well, folks use a password manager. So either something that's built in to your computer, built into your browser or into your system, or an external one. You can use whatever one works best for you. I use a Proton Pass because I really like it. And two-factor authentication. So passwords are great, passphrases are great. Two-factor authentication is an additional layer of security. Some services will let you turn on two-factor authentication or 2FA. And that means you'll log on with your password and then it'll say, I've also sent you an email to check that you're you. Or I want you to open a special app to check that you're you. Yeah. Oh, gosh, thank you very much. Multi-factor authentication has just been dropped into the chat. This section is going to be the hardest section we cover today because realistically, There is too much. Oh gosh, someone's saying that they use a password protected Excel file as their password manager. Amazing. Thank you. So, we're going to briefly just preview some of the tools that web developers use. The challenge is these tools are ones we're not going to be using through most of the course. And some of them I'm going to skip entirely. So this is going to be a very opinionated teacher look at that, if that's okay. Yeah. So throughout the course, we're going to be using the free code camp. Let's jump in here. We're going to be using, oh, let's come here. We're going to be using an in-browser web editor. Let's come to HTML. Oh, let's come to the workshop we're going to be doing next week. Oh, so here it's telling us what we're going to be learning. But we're going to be using the code editor inside our browser. So we don't need to think too much about where we're writing that code. But after you finish this course and you get your certificate and you're wonderful and your whole life is complete, we don't guarantee any of that. You're going to want to be writing your code on your computer and saving them to files on your computer, which you then send to a server or you send to a hosting provider who then makes that available to folks on the web. So even though it doesn't feel like it now, everything we're writing is files. They're just files that are living on Free CodeCamp server. Later on, when you're ready, you're going to want to use either a code editor to write your HTML outside of the Free CodeCamp environment. Some people like Sublime. I think a lot of Windows users use Notepad++. I use Sublime when I don't need something fully featured. And then just to preview this, we're not going to need to use this yet, but most professional web developers will use some kind of integrated development environment, an IDE. And this is a code editor that lets you connect a lot of other little fancy tools. I think Visual Studio Code is the most common. JetBrains is probably going to be less important for, oh gosh, we've got somebody saying, let's try Vim now. Don't you? Mm-mm. Let's let people be happy. Come on now. Vim is a different way to write code that's a little bit stressful for a lot of folks. PyCharm is a type of IDE specifically for people writing Python. So we're just going to think in advance. So if you see other classes, if you see other streamers, if you see tutorials talking about open Visual Studio Code and blah, 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 what they're doing is asking you to open up an integrated development environment. Oof. Another concept that's really, really hard. And we're not going to get into it too much, but we will talk about this a lot during the course. And if anybody in the chat has a better way to describe a version control system or a better way to describe Git, please, 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 I would love to hear about it. But the best way I've worked out how to describe this is a version control system is like a time machine for code. So you'll write your code on your computer, not a problem, and you'll send it back and forth through a version control system. And what that does is it sends your changes back to a sort of canonical version of your code. So you've been writing code, you've made some changes, you're going to send it to your version control system, and it's going to save the changes you've made. That seems like a lot of extra steps, right? Why would you want to do that? Why would you want a system that holds on and saves all of the individual changes you've made in your code? Well, one good reason to do that is that for most bigger projects, if you're building your portfolio projects, if you're working on this course, you might be the only person working on this code. If you work in a big company, you might be one of hundreds or thousands of people working with the same code. By using a version control system, you can send people changes without bumping into each other, without clashing on the changes you've made. Another reason you might want to use version control is that because it saves a snapshot of all the different changes you've made when you do something silly or when you experiment and get a little bit weird and you find the changes you've made have broken your code. Oh, perfect. Me says, oh, is this important? We've got folks who are just all on top of it. It's like, oh, it's important because, just like I was about to say, in case you write some code that breaks everything, and Lucia also as well is saying, hey, in case you write some code that breaks anything, you can go back in time. You can go to your version control system and say, okay, this new code I wrote is broken. And if you're me, I usually don't know why it's broken, but let's go back in time, one stop, back to the past when this code still worked. And let's try again. I'm going to be a little bit mean and say that we're going to ignore some of these for now. The theory said we want to learn about package managers. I'm going to make a Matthew is hinting that version control does have really tricky things. I've previewed this and made it sound really, really abstract, but a git rebase can be super duper stressful. And don't worry about changing the head manual. That's a future problem. We can be unhappy together in the future. I'm going to just slip up on your name. The version control is a very elaborate undo system. That's stunning. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That is the best way to say it. Oh gosh, and here's a question that I love. I love a question that's actually a really clever comment. So by Francis Fritz saying, hey, could we say that version control is like tracking your changes in a Word document or a Google Doc or any kind of shared cloud doc? Yes, I think this is a perfect way to say this. And this is a couple of years ago, I used to say that version control was like Flickr. And then I learned that people don't use Flickr anymore. uh, Things get hard when you're old. Just things change. So I'm going to be really, really unkind, really mean, and I'm going to tell you to ignore some things for now, if it's okay. This course talks to us about package managers. Good news, you do not need a package manager right now. We are going to ignore package managers. Package managers, I don't know her. She doesn't exist. She's not my problem. Testing frameworks, same thing. Both of these are super duper important, but these are important to your future self. Our lives are complicated enough already. We're going to leave this alone. What we are going to talk about later today is browsers. So if y'all are comfortable, what browser do you use? And you might not even know. So the browser, we'll talk about it more in a minute. So the browser you use has some built-in tools for developers. And we're going to look at those later on during our learning together. So out of all of these things, if it's okay for me to say so, I give you my own personal permission to ignore package managers and testing framework for now, if that's okay. Oh, dang! We've got somebody who uses, oh, sorry. So browser-wise, I assumed that we were going to see a lot of common browsers. Waterfox is a I use it myself sometimes, and I'm not gonna to what I say is I use it because I'm a privacy weirdo. We've got somebody who's a Firefox user. We've got some Chrome folks. We've got Edge. Oh gosh, somebody who's trying Vivaldi after the launch party. Folks on Safari and Onion, Arc. This is stunning. I love this. This is great. So the most wait, we'll talk about browsers in a second. I'm jumping around. I'm the worst. Cool. I didn't love how this part was written, so I've taken my notes just for the stuff I need. There are programs on most computers that let you find, delete, and move files. These are different on different operating systems. Operating systems are sort of the parent program that everything else on your computer runs on. If you are running a Linux operating system, you already know you're running a Linux operating system. If your computer has an Apple on it, you're probably running a Mac OS. And if you're running a Windows operating system, it's going to have that little start bar in the corner these days, isn't it? So all of these have different programs that let you find and do stuff with files. And these are just named the File Manager for Linux, the Finder application for Mac, and the File Explorer for Windows, respectively. So this gets to be a little bit difficult because when we go through this course, all of our code for our websites are going to live in the browser. We don't have to worry about it yet. But when we start moving past the course and we start writing our code in different files on the computer, you need to make sure that you're naming those appropriately. So we're going to talk about a couple concepts really fast. And the file extension, I think, is a really important one. A file extension is what type of file that you're making, that you're opening, or that you're changing. So when we get far enough into the course where we're looking at HTML and CSS files, we'll see the different files shown in our in-browser editor. You need to make sure that your file name has the right extension for your file type. For example, index.html is an HTML file. Cool. If we're writing our HTML, we need to make sure we save it to an HTML file. If I'm writing a shopping list and it's a shoppinglist.txt, that's a text file. Cool. We'll learn more about how these files work and how you get them from your computer onto the web later on. One thing that it does note, and we want to be careful with, is file names on the web can't have spaces on it. So be ready to use a hyphen. And everybody forgets this at least once. It's okay. So I wanted to take a look at this one as well, because I think that one of the ways we are looking at this is a little difficult for beginners. Let's come here. So what are the best practices for file or folder organization in web applications? Those of you who've worked with code before are going to yell that this is fine, but did anybody see this image and think this was really stressful? Was anybody not sure what this image is doing? Because when I first got started working with computers, I found this sort of way to spell out a file structure. I felt like that was kind of stressful for me. Oh, we've got a quick question. Oh, sorry. Matthew's saying, "Oh, do we want to use a hyphen over an underscore?" Um, in hmm, for beginners, it's fine. Like beginners hyphens most of the time. Uh, if if you have strong opinions, I trust your good judgment. So Dan, Dan is saying this is a file tree. Oh gosh, and we've got someone saying this is very calming for them. Okay, I was thinking that this would be really challenging for folks, so I built. This is not the best way to show file, but it was the best way to do this really easily and be able to share it in a browser tab. I went ahead and built this in a different way. So this is the exact same as this. This dot here is our parent folder. This is the root directory where all of the other folders and files live in. So whenever somebody tells you to go to root or go to your root directory, that's what we're talking about. Oh, everybody but me? Okay, everybody but me thought this was relaxing. So this would be our root file, and then we have files within it. So CSS would have these um, the CSS files that we're seeing. Boop. So root, the assets folder, our CSS folder, our CSS directory, and then the files that sit within them. But folks are telling me that y'all, oh, this feels, I have used more than half of my Google Drive, somebody's pointed out, which is weird because I don't use it very much. But this is the list view of a Finder and feels very efficient. Okay, we are all very, very different. And I had a stressful time with this, and some learners have, but all of y'all are just like, we're good, move along. So, working with file systems, how can you create, move, and delete files? We kind of covered this when we talked when we had the section about different file explorers, and this is really just saying different operating systems have different ways to do this. It's going to sound repetitive, but searching for files and folders, different operating systems, different ways to do this. Ah ha 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 ha. Okay, we're going to slow down again. What are some of the file types that you will make, that you will open, and you will edit when you're working with web applications? HTML files, stunning. We're going to start writing HTML tomorrow. Well, I mean, some of y'all are going to start doing that for your solo work after this course, if that's okay. These are the files that make up the different pages on your website, and they need to have a .html file extension. Somebody at the beginning of this session talked about the difference between the internet and the web as the difference between the connection and the content. And I thought that was really great. HTML files are the content of your web page. They're what's going on. They really tie it all together. Your CSS files, which we'll learn to make a little bit further into the course, these are files where you set styling rules. HTML says, put an image here, put some text here. And CSS says, I want this text to be green. I want that image to have a rounded border. I want it to look really cool. So I always like to remember HTML is what we're doing. It's the content. CSS, all style. JavaScript files, we're to look at these really briefly, but we're not going to be explicitly teaching a lot of JavaScript this course. We'll look at doing JavaScript at a future course, and we've done them in the past. But JavaScript files are .js extensions. And these files contain the code that allows your websites to do things, to have more interactivity than just HTML and CSS. Really importantly, anytime you have a CSS or a JavaScript file, you're going to need to link to those in your HTML. And we'll cover this when we look at it. So just remember, if you create a CSS file and you don't tell your HTML about it, you're not going to get those styles. Yeah. Any kind of media or image that you want to include on your website needs to be in your file system. This could be a JPEG, a PNG, a GIF, or a GIF, depending on how you want to say it. And again, you need your HTML to present those in order to make them work. Font files, the text on your website is written in a font, and those fonts are files. Whether or not they're living in your file system or somewhere on the web, you're going to have to link to them. We're not going to have to worry too much about README files yet. I know. The person who created the image format, GIF or GIF, says they're called GIF, and I hate to argue with an expert. So README files are kind of an instruction file for a code base. Sometimes you'll hear these terms interchangeably. Code base, and those are all of the files for a project together. If you're using Git as your, gosh, what a thing to have a brain fart about. If you're using Git as your version control system, gosh. If you're using Git as your version control system, you might hear, thank you, Garrett, you're a sweetheart. You might hear people say, in your repo, there's a README file. But these README files are sort of a guide for how to work with the rest of the files. Yeah. If there's a particularly cursed piece of code, the README file might mention it. We're almost done. We're almost done. So if y'all have any questions, chuck them in. Everything's fine. Browsers. So web browsers are the programs we use to access the web. Popular is not always best, but I'm also not in any position to tell y'all what's best. Two of the most common browsers that people use today are Google's Chrome and Apple's Safari. And this is because they come baked into a lot of devices. I'd really encourage you to try different browsers if you've got the time and if you've got the energy. But also, just use the browser you like best. Anybody telling you what to do is going to be a little bit weird. I think almost all of us know this. We're just going to go through it really quickly. What is the difference between a web browser, a website, and a search engine? We got this. This is no problem. Your web browser is the program you're using to access the web. Some of you like Waterfox, Firefox, Vivaldi, Chrome, not a problem. The website is the site you're on in your web browser. So we are on the Bad Website Club website. Cool. And a search engine. So a search engine is a service, usually that you access through a website, and it lets you search for websites from a specific topic. Yeah. What kind of what kind of search engines do people use? And while the delay is catching up, and you can tell me about, so yeah, what is your favorite search engine? Or if you don't care about search engines that much, what? Oh gosh, somebody's after my own heart. What search engines are y'all using? So, oh, I like this. So Dan's previewing something to say, hey, some bigger browsers have a developer version of a browser. Does it make a big difference to keep up with the browser? Oh gosh, to keep up with the browser versions for developers. Hmm. This is difficult because I think this is pretty opinionated. I believe it can. So a lot of web developers are very, very opinionated about different developer versions of browsers. Some folks really, really care. Some folks really keep up with them a lot. And some folks aren't as worried about it. I'd recommend trying different browsers, trying the developer versions of different browsers, and kind of seeing what works best for you. Yeah. If you find that you have strong opinions after using them, you're probably going to be one of those developers that has strong opinions about it. Okay, so we've got somebody using Kagi, start page, DuckDuckGo. Somebody's using the noai.duckduckgo. Nobody's saying Google, but Google tends to be the most common one. And this is something I wanted to cover is, do you know what? And this is something I added in my notes as well, is that search has gotten a lot worse these days. Um, yeah, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. So a big part of it has just been search quality is really declined. So you used to be able to search for cookies in Toronto, and you would get cookie shops in Toronto, or you would get cookie shops in Toronto and local news about web cookies in Toronto. But there's a lot of things that have made search work less. Some of them have been some of the big search engines have made internal choices that make search less powerful, but also Gen AI. So LLMs let you create tons of websites, tons of content, and it means that there's more and more low quality fluff to try and search through in order to try and search, which can be pretty stressful. I'm really sorry. But one thing that can make it real useful is, and this is really good. So there's some sort of search processes that can make your life better. Learning about what to search for in different keywords, adding different punctuation, regular expressions. Oh, and like using quotation marks to wrap your search can be really useful. The thing I'd say are try different search engines as well. Google's really commonly used. I think it's overwhelmingly used. DuckDuckGo is pretty common as well, and I like it. I've tried Kagi and really liked it. It is a paid service, and it seems weird to pay for something that was free forever. Um, but it also actually works pretty well, even though search across the web has gotten a bit rubbish. It also has a free trial in case you want to try it and see if you like it. Fantastic. So that is going to be all of the notes we've taken today. I've seen one good question, clarification on a question, but if anybody has any questions about anything we've covered, I'm going to go ahead and bring us back up through our notes and take a look at the solo work I'm going to politely ask us to do before the next course. And it is kind of a lot. We're going all the way up. Gosh, gosh, there's so much. So after this session, please. Oh, and this is a great time for if you did take notes and you wrote down any questions in your notes, they don't have to be about something I've covered in detail. Just throw them in into the little chat. And if you're watching this asynchronously, come in and ask those questions in Discord if you like. Everything's fine. I mean, everything's stressful, but everything's okay. Cool. So after the session, could I ask you to please go through the steps of our first workshop? There we go. And this is going to be, just to preview it, a little tiny introduction to the code editor that we're using. And it'll teach us a couple of very, very basic concepts around HTML. So here, it's asking us to, oh gosh, it's asking me to actually type right. Find line 1 in our editor. I'm on line 1. Welcome to free code camp. And check your code is going to be a big part of this. Stunning, our code passes. I am very intentionally doing this course along with you all. I know there's a ton of times where it feels like we're giving you a ton of solo work. I am also going to be staying up late the night before and working on solo work. Please keep in mind that even though we're saying go, 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 we're going really fast, your progress will never go away. So Free Code Camp will save your progress. You can log back in. If you win the lottery and you decide you're taking a year off, your progress will be saved. If you need to come back later and improve some of your projects, absolutely. So even though we're going real fast, oh gosh, I'm seeing really good questions. I'm going to come back to them. So even though we're going real fast and it feels like there are tons of deadlines, they're not the worst thing in the world. Cool. So we're going to ask you to do this. We're also going to ask you to try and work through this first um, this first debug project. So it's going to give you the code, and the code's a little bit broken, and it's going to give you instructions for what it wants you to fix. So we're going to write a little bit of HTML on our own. We're going to try and move forward for this on our own. And I'd ask you to take really good notes about this to say, what are the new concepts? And even more importantly, what are the questions you have? And a little bit boring, instead of having like 8 different theory things to read and take notes about, like you did before this class, there's just 2. So understanding HTML attributes and so what role does HTML play on the web? A hint, it's the content. And also, what are attributes and how do they work? So it's going to be more typing and less, well, it's going to be writing more HTML and less note taking, but still quite a bit to do. So if I can ask you to try and get through this before tomorrow, or if you're joining us tomorrow, that would be a joy and a delight. All right, we've got a couple of questions, and then I will joyously say good evening to you. Oh, Dan, when I was trying to answer your question about is it important to keep up with is it important for developers to keep up with the different browser types? You were asking a different, very complex question. Ooh. So HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are the 3 big languages on the web. And these web technologies, sorry, Dan, I imagine you know this. I'm just for other folks who might not. These core technologies are governed by a standards board. And this is because to make the web work, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript need to work mostly the same way in any browser you use. They need to work mostly the same way on any device you use. And from Bruce's talk on Friday, they should, but don't always, work mostly the same way, even if you're on a slow device. Yeah. Right now, when there's a new feature in CSS or there's a change in HTML, they always try and make sure that it doesn't break old stuff. So new things can be added, like new features, new exciting things you could use, but never going back in time and making changes to these three languages that would break the old things. Sometimes, when there's a new supported feature in a web language, HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, some browsers will make it possible to use that feature earlier than others. And Matthew's saying, well, specifically with CSS, are the differences in these supported CSS features being brought to different browsers at different times? Is that important? It is important, but for most folks starting out this course, it's not going to be that important when you start. So just like what is a package manager, if you're just getting through being more and more comfortable with core web technologies, I'd say I wouldn't worry about it quite yet. Yeah. I would say if you're at the point where you're asking this question, cross-browser testing. So I've made a website. I'm going to check it in the browser I use. Oh gosh, I'm going to check it in a bunch of other browsers to make sure it doesn't seem weird or it doesn't seem broken. If you're thinking about this question, cross-browser testing is going to make your life, well, is going to make your mean teacher happier, if that's okay. Amazing. So we've got one last question that I'm really excited about. Eugen is saying, hey, what's the difference between a directory and a folder? For what we're looking at in this course, we can say directory or folder, and they mean the same thing here. There's a ton of things in this course and in programming and in computing where there's a bunch of different ways to say the same thing. I'm coding, I'm programming, same thing. Yeah, I'm sorry that it's a little bit reductive. Stunning. That is us for the day. We've gone super, super fast, but I'm really excited that we got the least fun stuff done first. This is the most boring stuff we're going to do, and it's done. Carmen does a thing where she's like, "Oh, a little pat pat" when she solves a hard problem. I'm doing a little pat pat for getting through the boring theory stuff. The boring theory stuff is done. We're free. Gosh, Matthew, that's such a good point. You know what? In taking good notes, I always encourage people to have sort of a different sections. A jargon dictionary might be really, really good. Thank you so much. But I am going to very lovingly say goodbye to all of you. If it's morning where you are, please have. Okay, this is true. A folder is a directory, but a directory is not necessarily a folder. That is technically correct. It is a little, that's conceptually advanced for this course. I'll see you after class. You're not wrong. You're delightfully not wrong. But for everyone else, throughout the rest of this course, just think about directories and folders as the same thing, please. A lot of times in learning, especially with learning beginner content, it can be challenging because there's so many concepts and a lot of them are really advanced. So I'll always try and preview when I'm saying, we're going to go ahead and abstract this down. We're just going to look at what we need for now. So if you come to a similar concept tomorrow or next week and you said, oh, package managers were important, just lied to me, I'm okay with being a liar. But I did also say, we're not going to worry about this yet. This isn't our problem yet. I'm a big fan of worrying about today problems when they're today problems and worrying about next week or next year problems when they get us. So, whenever we're abstracting something away and saying, hey, this exists, this is complicated, we don't need it yet, just go ahead and throw that in the it's for future me to deal with problem. Thank you so, so much for all of your time. It was a joy, and I'll let you go. Bye, team.